In this lesson, we're going to continue to learn about three-dimensional shapes, and we'll be focusing on volume. Volume is the amount of space an object takes up, or the amount of space inside of an object. We will start by finding the volume of a rectangular prism because it's the easiest to visualize. Imagine that we have 3 cubes by 3 cubes. We know that we could count and have 9 cubes in total. Now, this is a 3 by 3 by 1 rectangular prism. Now we keep adding more and more layers, and we see that if we had 3 layers that were each 3 by 3, then we would have a 3 by 3 by 3 cube, so we would have 3 layers of 9 cubes, or 27 cubes. A fast way to do this is to just multiply our length times our width times our height. And this same principle will hold true no matter what our length, width, and height are. For example, in this rectangular prism that's 2 by 3 by 5, because our 2 by 3 is our base layer, so we have a 2 by 3 or 6 cubes on the bottom, and then we keep adding 5 layers of this. So we have 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6, and this gives us 30 cubes in total. In general, we can always do length times width times height to find the volume of a rectangular prism, and it's just as if we're counting all of the cubes that make up the prism. One thing that's important to note is that we could rotate these rectangular prisms, or any three-dimensional shape for that matter, and it wouldn't matter the orientation. So it doesn't matter which is our length, which is our width, and which is our height. All that matters is that our height is perpendicular to the entire base. Since our base is a rectangle, we know that we find the area of this rectangle by doing length times width. Now let's look at cylinders. We can think of a cylinder like a stack of pancakes. We could find the volume of one pancake and multiply it by however many layers there are. So if you have a stack of 12 pancakes, then you would have 12 times whatever the area of the first pancake is if you're looking for the volume. This image is a little bit more mathematical. We have a cylinder with a height and a base that's circular, and the cylinder is made up of several discs that are each circular as well. If you think back to when we did two-dimensional geometry, you'll remember that in order to find the area of a circle, we do pi r squared, or pi times the square of the radius. Now, we want to find the area of a circle, which is our base on top, and multiply it by however tall our cylinder is. A cylinder is just a prism that has a base that's a circle. In other words, it doesn't matter what shape your base is. In order to find the volume of a prism, even if it's a cylinder, we need to find the area of the base and multiply it by the height of the object. Don't be fooled by the way that the object is laying. For example, if we look at the cylinder here, our base is a circle. We know that in order to find the area of a circle, we do pi radius squared, and then our other dimension, which is perpendicular, or makes a right angle with our base, is our height. For this triangular prism, we have triangular bases, so we would need to do 1/2 times the base times the height of that triangular base, and to find the volume of the prism, multiply it by this height. Now we have a rectangular prism. We could consider any of these faces to be our base. If we use the yellow face on top, then our height would be going vertically like this. However, if we had chosen the front as our base, then we would have a different height. The bottom line is that we want to find the area of the base and multiply it by our height for any prism. Now, just as we did with two-dimensional geometry, sometimes we won't be given all the dimensions, but we will be given the volume, and we'll need to work backwards from there. So now let's try a few examples. In case you missed any of this so far, we have that volume is the amount of space an object takes up, that a rectangular prism, we find the volume by doing length times width times height, and that in order to find the volume of a cylinder, we do the area of the base, which is pi r squared, because it's a circle, times the height of a cylinder. Both of those formulas can be found on your orange reference sheet. Now, for any prism, we always do the area of the base times the height. So if you ever get stuck, you can use what you know about the shape of the base, and then multiply that area times the height. Now we'll do some examples. So Example 1 says, find the volume of each prism. We have a 12 centimeter by 8 centimeter by 7 centimeter rectangular prism. Now, it doesn't matter which is the length and width and height. However, if you'd like to label them so you don't get confused later, then label them L, W, and H. As always, I write my formula, V equals length times width times height. Then I fill in the numbers I know, so 12 times 8 times 7, and I'll use a calculator to find the answer. When we multiply these numbers together, we get 672. Now, our units here wouldn't be centimeters because that's one dimension. They also wouldn't be centimeters squared because that would be the area. And instead, it would be centimeters cubed because that's how many cubic centimeters, or how many of those small cubes, would fit inside of this. I'm going to skip example 2 and let you try it on your own, and I'll move on to example 3, which is a cylinder. The volume of a cylinder is pi times radius squared, because that's the area of the circle at the top, times the height. So we have 3.14 times our radius, which is 12, and we square the radius, and then multiply it times our height of 25. And we get 11,304. And again, we have millimeters cubed. I will let you try example 4 on your own, but make sure that you remember to use the radius, not the diameter. Example 5 says the volume of a rectangular prism is 82 32 centimeter cubed. The length of the prism is 3.5 centimeters and the width is 4.2 centimeters. Find the height. As always, first I write down my formula. So I have V equals length times width times height, because it's a rectangular prism. Now let's fill in all of the numbers I know. I know that the volume is 82.32. I know that the length is 3.5, and I know that the width is 4.2. I don't know the height, but I can simplify the right side by multiplying my numbers together, and then I can divide by that product on both sides. The product on the right side was 14.7, so now I need to divide both sides by 14.7 in order to isolate h. And when I do that, I get 5.6 equals h. In other words, my height is 5 6/10 centimeters. Centimeters is the correct unit because height is just in units. It's not units squared like area, and it's not units cubed like volume. Try the rest of the problems that are all related to volume for cylinders and other prisms, and tomorrow we'll discuss any questions that you have.